You were with the circus.
The words tumbled out before Charlie could stop them. The old man, Jacob, looked up from his bowl of lukewarm porridge. His eyes, though clouded with age, held a flicker of something unreadable. A ghost of a smile played on his lips.
Now how did you guess that, Sonny?
He chuckled, his voice a raspy whisper. Charlie shifted in his seat. He had been visiting the nursing home for weeks, drawn to the enigmatic aura of Jacob Jankowski. The name, whispered amongst the nurses, was always accompanied by hushed tones and knowing glances. They spoke of a past shrouded in mystery, of a life less ordinary.
You have that look about you. And I saw a picture in your room. A beautiful woman with a white horse.
Jacob's smile faded. He reached for a worn photograph beside his bed, the image yellowed with time but the love in his eyes as clear as day.
Marlena. And that magnificent creature was Rosie. My Rosie.
Charlie leaned forward, captivated. The air crackled with unspoken stories, with a past begging to be told. Little did he know he was about to be pulled headfirst into the extraordinary, heartbreaking, and ultimately triumphant life of Jacob Jankowski, a life that began under the dazzling lights of the Benzini Brothers. 1931, a year etched in the annals of history, a year that would forever change the lives of countless individuals. America was on its knees. The Great Depression had cast a long, dark shadow over the nation, plunging it into an abyss of economic despair. The Great Depression had sunk its claws into the nation, leaving despair and desperation in its wake. Families were torn apart, dreams were shattered, and hope seemed like a distant memory. Jacob, a bright young man on the cusp of graduating from Cornell's veterinary program, felt the world crumble around him. He had worked tirelessly, pouring his heart and soul into his studies, only to see his future slipping through his fingers. His parents, victims of a senseless car accident, were gone. In an instant, the pillars of his life were ripped away, leaving him to navigate a world that suddenly felt cold and unwelcoming. Their farm, once a symbol of their hard work and dreams, was snatched away by the unforgiving hands of the bank. The land that had been their sanctuary, their livelihood, was now just another casualty of the relentless economic downturn.
The world that Jacob knew, the life he had envisioned for himself, had vanished in a cruel twist of fate. The dreams he had nurtured, the plans he had made, all seemed to dissolve into thin air. He was utterly alone, adrift in a sea of uncertainty and grief. The weight of his loss was a constant companion, a shadow that followed him wherever he went. The weight of his loss was a physical ache, a constant pressure in his chest that stole his breath and choked his spirit. Every breath felt labored, every heartbeat a reminder of the void that had taken residence in his life.
Cornell, once his sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. The vibrant halls that had once echoed with laughter and camaraderie now seemed to mock his pain. The halls echoed with the ghosts of his past, of laughter shared with his parents, of dreams whispered under starry skies. Every corner of the campus held a memory, a fragment of a life that was no more, of dreams whispered under starry skies. Those nights filled with hope and ambition now seemed like distant echoes of a forgotten era. He walked through life in a daze, the vibrant colors of the world muted to shades of gray. The once bustling city streets now felt like a labyrinth of sorrow, each step heavy with the burden of his grief. One night, unable to bear the suffocating silence of his empty dormitory room, Jacob wandered aimlessly. The night air was cool, but it did little to soothe the turmoil within him. The rhythmic chugging of a train in the distance stirred something within him. It was a sound that spoke of journeys, of destinations unknown, of a chance to escape the relentless grip of his sorrow. A wild, desperate hope flickered in his heart. Perhaps in the embrace of the unknown he could find a semblance of peace, a way to mend the shattered pieces of his soul. Maybe, just maybe, escape was the only solace he had left. With a heart heavy with both fear and hope, Jacob boarded the train, leaving behind the remnants of his past in search of a future that was yet to be written. The train rattled and swayed, carrying Jacob towards an uncertain future. Each clatter of the wheels on the tracks seemed to echo the turmoil in his heart, a constant reminder of the life he had left behind. He had no destination in mind, no plan, just a burning desire to outrun his grief. The landscape blurred past him, a mosaic of greens and browns, but his thoughts were a whirlwind of memories and regrets. As dawn broke, bathing the countryside in a soft, ethereal light, he saw it. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the mist, casting a golden hue over the fields, and in that moment, he felt a glimmer of hope. a sprawling canvas town, teeming with life and bursting with color. The sight was almost surreal, a stark contrast to the monotony of his recent days. It was as if he had stumbled upon a hidden world, vibrant and full of promise. The Benzini brothers' most spectacular show on earth had come to town. The bold letters on the sign seemed to beckon him, promising adventure and a chance to escape his past.
Hesitantly, Jacob approached the circus grounds. Each step felt heavy, laden with uncertainty, but also with a strange sense of anticipation. The air buzzed with a chaotic energy. Performers darted around, animals roared and trumpeted, and the entire scene was a whirlwind of activity. Ropes were tossed, animals trumpeted, and the tantalizing aroma of popcorn and sawdust filled the air. It was a sensory overload, a cacophony of sights, sounds, and smells that was both overwhelming and exhilarating. It was a sensory overload, a world far removed from the quiet despair he carried within him. The vibrant chaos of the circus was a stark contrast to the emptiness he felt inside.
Fate, it seemed, had other plans for Jacob. The circus, with its promise of wonder and escape, was about to become his new reality. A chance encounter with a gruff but kind-hearted stable hand, Camel, led him to the heart of the operation, the menagerie tent. Camel's rough exterior belied a deep knowledge and love for the animals he cared for.
It was there he met August, the head animal trainer, a man whose eyes held a disturbing glint of both charisma and cruelty. August's presence was commanding, and his reputation among the circus folk was one of both respect and fear.
And then he saw her. Amidst the bustling activity, she stood out like a beacon. Marlena, August's wife and the star equestrian performer, stood beside a magnificent white horse. Her grace and poise were evident, even from a distance. Her beauty was breathtaking, but it was the sadness in her eyes, the vulnerability she tried so desperately to conceal, that drew Jacob to her. There was a depth to her gaze, a silent plea for understanding and connection. In that instant, amidst the chaos and wonder of the circus, their destinies became irrevocably entwined. The circus, with all its magic and madness, was now the stage for a story that would change their lives forever. Life with the Benzini brothers was a whirlwind of noise, color, and constant motion. The circus was a living, breathing entity, pulsating with energy and excitement. Every corner of the grounds was alive with the sounds of laughter, the shouts of vendors, and the distant roar of the crowd. It was a place where the extraordinary was the norm, and the mundane had no place. Jacob, hired on as a veterinarian, found himself thrust into a world unlike any he could have imagined. The circus was a far cry from the quiet, orderly life he had known. Here, chaos reigned supreme, and every day brought new challenges and surprises. From the moment he arrived, Jacob was swept up in the frenetic pace of circus life, his senses overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and smells that surrounded him. The menagerie tent was a cacophony of roars, screeches, and trumpeting. It was a place where the wild and the exotic came together in a symphony of sound, each animal adding its voice to the chorus. The air was thick with the scent of hay, sweat, and the unmistakable musk of the animals, creating an atmosphere that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Exotic creatures from every corner of the globe were housed within its canvas walls, their smells a potent mix of fear, excitement, and raw animal musk. Lions, tigers, elephants, and more, each with their own unique presence, filled the tent with a sense of wonder and awe. The animals were a testament to the diversity and beauty of the natural world, even as they were confined within the circus's boundaries.
His days were long and arduous, filled with treating everything from a lion's infected paw to a camel's upset stomach. Each case presented its own set of challenges, requiring Jacob to draw on all his knowledge and skills. The work was physically demanding, often leaving him exhausted by the end of the day, but it was also deeply rewarding. Every successful treatment, every animal that he helped, reinforced his sense of purpose and commitment. The work was challenging, often heartbreaking, but Jacob found solace in his ability to ease the suffering of these magnificent creatures. He formed bonds with the animals, understanding their needs and fears in a way that few others could. These moments of connection, when an animal would respond to his touch or look at him with trust in its eyes, were what kept him going, even in the face of adversity.
However, his compassion for the animals soon brought him into direct conflict with August. The head trainer, a man whose methods were as harsh as his demeanor, saw Jacob's empathy as a weakness. To August, the animals were nothing more than tools, their value measured solely by their ability to perform and draw in the crowds. The head trainer, a man fueled by ego and a twisted sense of power, ruled the menagerie with an iron fist. His approach was one of dominance and control, using fear and pain to bend the animals to his will. August's presence was a constant source of tension, his authoritarian style clashing with Jacob's more compassionate approach.
He saw the animals as mere commodities, tools to be exploited for profit, and had no qualms about resorting to brutality to maintain control. The animals' well-being was secondary to their performance, and any sign of weakness was met with swift and often cruel punishment. This callous attitude was a stark contrast to Jacob's own beliefs, and it pained him to see the creatures he cared for treated with such disregard.
Jacob, witnessing firsthand the scars, both physical and emotional, that August inflicted upon the creatures under his care, found himself torn. He saw the toll that the harsh training methods took on the animals, their spirits broken, and their bodies marked by the constant abuse. It was a heartbreaking sight, one that fueled his determination to make a difference, no matter the cost. He was, after all, just a lowly vet, an outsider in this strange and often brutal world. The circus was a tight-knit community, and Jacob was still finding his place within it. Yet, despite his outsider status, he couldn't ignore the suffering he saw around him. His conscience wouldn't allow him to turn a blind eye, even if it meant putting himself at risk. But something within him, a deep-seated sense of right and wrong, refused to let him stand by and do nothing. He knew that challenging August would be dangerous, that it could cost him his job or worse. But the thought of doing nothing, of allowing the abuse to continue unchecked, was something he couldn't live with. Jacob's resolve hardened, and he prepared himself for the battle ahead. The battle lines were drawn, and Jacob knew that in challenging August, he was stepping into a dangerous game. It was a game where the stakes were high, and the consequences could be severe. But for the sake of the animals, for the sake of his own integrity, Jacob was willing to take that risk. He was ready to fight for what he believed in, no matter the cost.